Hi, everyone. It is our Wednesday night webinar. Always happy to have all of you here to join us. And if you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, we work with body-focused repetitive behaviors and tics and hoarding and anxiety disorders and trauma and mood conditions. We do all evidence-based treatments, behavioral-based with those. We are happy to have you here to discuss what we can do for you. Check us out at nocd.com. That's nocd.com. You can speak to people on our intake team. They can set you up with one of our wonderful licensed therapists who are expertly trained, I would like to say, in OCD and ERP and other conditions. And Marcy, one of those. And Marcy, first of all, African American Black
Yeah.
Heritage Month. Welcome. Thank you to have you here. And tell everybody a little bit about you and what's going on. Oh, I hear some funny sounds. I don't know
I
what those
know,
are.
right?
Yeah.
A little chime. Hopefully it won't last long. But hi, everyone. I'm Marcy. I'm a clinical therapist in Michigan. I'm licensed in Michigan, as well as Illinois, and I live in Detroit area. So I've been a therapist for about 28, 29 years, and I worked in clinical settings, psychiatric hospitals, and so lately I've been at OCD for the past few years, and I'm enjoying myself so far.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Always appreciate having guests on with me.
Mhm.
It's fun. It makes the night go quick and everything. So,
Yeah.
uh, before we get into the scroll and the questions that people are providing, which they will, I'm just curious. How have you seen OCD in the uh, Black African American community specifically, or in the work that you've been doing that might be different from some of the things we may typically talk about here on the webinar?
Well, um, the actually I don't have a large minority clientele. I have about two or three, I believe,
Okay. Mhm.
and obviously they I believe they choose me because obviously I'm African American.
Mhm.
I think some of the challenges they have, I remember one member stated was that she feels like some therapists may not understand her specific cultural differences or needs, or will be able to relate to her because of
Mhm.
being African American and the unique experiences that we have in our culture. So um, it's she says sometimes it seems awkward, to
Sure.
try to get to connect with people who don't understand some of the unique challenges that we face in our community.
Well, as we go through the questions tonight, that'll be interesting to take a look at, especially what you may have to offer, from your personal, your professional opinions in
Mhm.
how some of the concerns people raised might also be similar or different in the African American community too, as we again celebrate that this is
Yeah,
Black History Month. So always happy to do
yeah,
that, and
yeah,
and love these months when we get to celebrate various cultures who are here
right,
at NoCD. So
yeah.
um, let's take a look at it. And Tom is asking about some medications and wants to know about. I think we addressed this a little bit last time, but Marcy will talk a little bit about it. That one's a controlled substance. He's worried about the doctor taking him off of it. He doesn't want to tell her it's helping a lot because he doesn't want her to think that he's a drug addict. So
Oh,
this can be one of those things where people might be afraid to talk to their providers. And one thing that we always talk about is honesty with your provider is so very
right,
important in order to
very-
make sure therapy's going well, right?
right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, so there's stereotypes about, you know, that comes with being a minority,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can be hard to, have build a rapport with your providers if there's already some type of implicit bias about being African American and stereotypes of being on drugs or what have you,
Hmm.
and then but having a true need and not getting it fulfilled because of those implicit biases is a real thing.
Right.
So, but as long as you have a good record of being an established a rapport with your provider and record of getting care, then, like Tom says, be honest about what you need.
Yeah, that's what we want, right? We want people to
Right.
be honest about their needs, so that's good.
Hmm.
I'm trying to understand ERP better for my blood pressure OCD. So sometimes people will go in for their blood pressure, especially at their doctor's office, and it'll go through the charts. I don't know if it's an OCD always, or there's sometimes that's a phobic reaction too, where there's a lot of anticipation. And of course, once we hope our blood pressure doesn't go up, what do you think happens?
It goes up.
It goes up, right? Yeah. So there's so much anticipation. So one of
Yeah.
the things that I have people do is maybe the week before they go see their doctor, take their blood pressure every day, several times a day. Actually, just practice it. Get used to the cuff. Get used to the feeling on it. You still may have more anxiety when you go into the doctor's office and somebody's taking it, but you might also establish in there that we'll take it and then the first one won't count and then we'll take it again. And I've seen people that when they do that, the second one is almost always fine. So it's this anticipatory kind of experience that people really have.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember um, having a client who was working herself up and working herself up to a panic and going into the doctor. And some providers don't understand OCD, so she was getting prescribed medications that maybe, I don't know, she may or may not have needed because her anxiety was the root cause of her blood pressure and going up. So it's good to again have a good rapport with your providers so they know you and and all your needs, and being transparent about all of your needs.
Yeah. And they say, I feel like I want to prove to myself that I can do it once and fight the urge to do it again. You can absolutely practice that, right? There's nothing wrong with practicing that. Sometimes you could even just take it and not even look at the results, right? But just take it and have the experience of it. That is okay too, right? We're not saying that every time you take it, you have to look at it. You can take it and allow yourself just to get used to the whole experience so that when you do go to get it done at the doctor's office, you've practiced the experience multiple times. So that could be too. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Rhonda talks about being a checker. Your main thing is perfectionism or just right OCD, procrastinating right now, taking your pills, watering the plants because you hate the checking. Why? So let's think about a couple of things here, and Marcy and I, we could chat this. A lot of people will do something and then feel like, what if I didn't do it right or correct, right? So they'll want to go back and they'll want to check that thing again. And of course, we'll want them to live with the doubt and the uncertainty of that experience. So when you're working with people, Marcy, how do you help people live with that doubt and that uncertainty and learn that they can handle it, even though that urge is there to go back and look and check and all those things?
Just we work on just fighting that urge
Mm-hmm.
to look and check and just feel the discomfort, in your body of not knowing of what it is, and it's not going to be comfortable until it's okay. And then I think what I notice is that when that happens the first few times, then it's like an aha moment, and then people realize that they don't have to check, and that their distress comes down, and without even doing a compulsion of checking. And so usually when they get over that, I'm sorry, that first hump, then it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The first two times of not checking or not doing a compulsion, and then they see that it just naturally passes, then usually it's easier from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's even been research that's been out that shows that the more people check, the less confidence they actually have in an experience, right? And
Right.
so, if checking actually helped, we would prescribe checking to people, right? We would
Right.
we would say uh, we'd say yes, check more, check
Right.
more,
Right.
But we know that that is not the case. That is not what we want people to do, right?
Right.
Because it is what OCD wants people to do, and I haven't yet found that people who check more really feel better about situations, right?
Right.
They typically report feeling more and more stuck in certain
Hmm.
situations than they do anything else. So
Yeah.
it's really about what can we do, like you said, which I think is very important, to help people live with doubt and uncertainty.
Hmm.
And many people don't want that, right? Because the allure of OCD is you can have certainty. And that's why sometimes I liken it to, Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown. And every time he thinks this is going to be the time I'm going to kick it, and every time, just as he's about to kick it, she pulls it up and he goes flying through the air and lands on his back and never kicks the football, right? And so
Right.
that's kind of like OCD right there. OCD plays this trick on you and says, I think this will be the time. Why not just do it once more? I think this will be it. And of course, we've
It's never
never
been
once we've never once met anybody who satisfied OCD.
right. And that's what I asked my members. I said, "Well, does it work when you check? Does it work for you?" And they're like, "No, it doesn't work. I still feel distressed and for longer periods of time. So, no, it doesn't work."
Yeah. We also obviously don't prescribe checking to anybody, right? We don't want people going.
Right.
Mhm. I I sometimes have said, and I did this in a talk today. I was discussing OCD, and I said, imagine if we followed the rules of OCD as a way
Mhm.
to live. I think society would end very quickly because nobody would drive anymore out of a fear of running somebody over with their car, which means food doesn't get delivered anymore. So you can only walk to where the grocery stores are, which would then be emptied within probably 2 days. There would be no more food left on any shelves or anything like that. Nobody goes to the plant that makes electricity because what if they accidentally cause a surge that burns a house down? Nobody would want to be responsible for that. Nobody goes to the plant that ships the gas because who would want to be responsible for a gas surge that could cause a house to blow up? You see that on the news every once in a while. Something like that happens with a gas leak.
Right.
Nobody would want to go to the water plant because what if they accidentally allowed a microbe into the water that got somebody sick and they were responsible for it? So all utilities end within a couple of days. And now we're kind of all on our own with living with whatever foods in our homes and having to eat probably all the stuff in the freezer really quick because it's going to spoil because it's not going to be refrigerated or frozen anymore because we don't have electricity going anymore. And people might even think, well, we'll cut down some trees and we'll build a fire. Oh, but what if that puts a lot of carbon into the air and soot and things, and that makes breathing difficult for other people? I don't want to be responsible for that. So can we even cook food anymore? And it's just like, if
Right.
OCD, yeah, if OCD was in charge, I think society ends within a couple of months. I don't think any of us are left anymore if that's the case.
Right.
So it doesn't matter the amount of prepping you do, you're still going to find something that's going to get in the way because OCD will always get in the way.
And it's never satisfied.
Never
No matter
satisfied,
how much you do.
never helpful, right?
Yeah.
None of those things. So yeah, that's not the way that it goes. Okay. Gospel Hostage, grateful to listen in on the conversation. Thank you, Gospel Hostage. Good to have you here. Let's talk about this one because I think this one is culturally interesting as well. How do I handle the stigma of having a mental illness in my family? My brother has a mental illness, and my mother literally told the doctor, I know my son and he doesn't have it.
Yeah. That's very common in the African American community where
Mm-hmm.
I think we're coming around though that, it's much better, but the stigma of having a mental illness is nothing wrong with you is the thing, or you just need to pray about it, or It's because, African Americans, we're very, most of us are spiritual,
Mhm.
uh, strong spiritual foundation. And whatever issue you have, you can just pray it away and it'll be fine. And so, and the belief that just to be strong, and to be strong is sometimes means to not show vulnerability or emotions, and so yeah, that is a very common uh, thing in our culture, and it's just education coming in, and some family members will come around and be open to, you know learning more about mental health, and which I think it is gradually, but then
Mhm.
some just, maybe not stuck in their ways. But the thing is, do what's best for you and whomever your family members are. And once they see that you're getting treatment or your brother's getting treatment and they see the differences, that usually is a aha moment as well, when they see changes, and um, when there is treatment and when there are changes, and family members are able to function better
Yeah.
because of it.
Marcy, I wanted to ask, in that situation where a mom is saying, I know my son and he doesn't have a mental health issue,
Yeah, yeah,
we know OCD at least, uses anxiety and discomfort, but there's also shame and
yeah,
guilt that come into, and
yeah,
I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit about, the type of shame that people might hold on to
right,
that's associated with having a mental health problem, or being the parent of someone. Did that mean I gave my child
right,
this, or I'm responsible, or something like that?
right.
And, and even there, we have Zach next, who asks, being a good ally to the BIPOC folks in the community,
Mhm,
what I think those two really go nicely together, actually.
mhm,
How do we deal with stigma and shame and those things
right.
about mental health that are
I
going on?
think what we're doing now, talking about, because the shame, I think, comes from suffering in silence and feeling isolated and withdrawn, and not knowing, not being able to relate to others, or not because you're not sharing because of the shame, and not connecting to others. But when we have platforms like this, and um, representation of being like allies to um, African American community, and talking more about it, and I think the breaking the stigma behind it with education and information is helpful. Um, and that's I think that's the start, and just gradually, I think people are coming around. Um, but the shame, yeah, it's real. Shame is real. Where a lot of people don't, they have their family members like mom who are from a different generation, and feeling like, that you don't need medication, or, just not trusting the larger, bigger system when it comes to care and treatment. And so it's more education about it, more information about it, talking about it, and not, to break that stigma around mental health, and making it normal, and making it like it's common, just like having any other medical issue or concern.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because there's still sadly that notion that a physical issue is
mhm,
got more okayness to
yeah,
it than a mental health issue,
right,
across all cultures in many ways. But I
right,
think that, as you've described, there can be particular things in maybe the BIPOC community also that we
yeah,
want to address. I know at times, like Monica Williams does amazing research in this area, Caitlin Pizziotti, there's people out there that are really taking a look at this and making this the focus of how do we assure that OCD treatment is really the right, being done the right way for everybody, right? And there's even a BIPOC training now for therapists in the OCD community that they're doing. So
mhm,
it's really exciting to see movements in this area to assure that we're doing right by everybody who has OCD, which I'm really happy about. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, all right, let's see. what causes OCD flare-ups and how long does it take for ERP to help OCD flare-ups? Well, I think that that's individualized to each person who has a flare-up, and how long it takes is how long is somebody willing to do ERP and really engage in ERP and allow themselves to learn from the ERP. So anything can cause a flare-up, right? I mean,
Right.
you could go for a long time with having OCD feeling as if it's rather under control and not being really bothersome, and then boom, something hits you one day, right? It just,
Right.
who knows what it is? Somebody said something slightly different. You felt something a little different that day. What you weren't quite yourself that day, and bam, something just kind of hit different. I'd liken that to, you could be a weightlifter and lift weights every single day, and one day do the what seems to be the exact same thing that you did the last 100 times and pull a muscle today, right? Because something was just maybe slightly off or tweaked slightly, and we may never know exactly what it was, but boom, that was the thing that hit it. So no matter what about a flare up, what do you want to do? Go back to your tried and true treatments, the things that are really helpful to you, and make sure that you're using those. And it's also why when we do treatment with people, we don't just say, okay, you're done and move on. That's why we like a maintenance level of work with people, to assure that they know that we're in their back pocket, right? And that they can help us. So, Marcy, as you do that, as people improve, what's it like for them to know they can still reach out to you and have some contact if they need it, right?
What's comforting to them? There's always a fear that they'll regress or relapse, and I hear some members say, I have to, when there is a flare up, they'll say, "Oh, I have to start over at square one," and like, no, just pick up where you left off and keep going, and it's the same, thing you've been doing and trying, and just letting them know it's not about perfection, but just progression over time, and to keep, get it back up and get back on the horse and do what you've been doing that's working, reminding people about the progress they've made, and to keep practicing, and the imperfections of life, and nothing is 100% or absolute, so there's going to be ups and downs, and that's okay, and normalizing that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Marcy, Gospel Hostage says he's African-American male raised in a strict Pentecostal household, still a Christian by choice today. So there's the question. I'm 40 and recently started ERP for scrupulosity during my sessions, and sometimes after. I really want to cry when I think about growing up with undiagnosed OCD. What's an appropriate way to grieve?
Well, forgiveness, forgiving yourself. You don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know then. So the past is gone, and you accept the fact that I didn't know then, and having some grace and compassion for yourself for what you didn't know, and now looking forward to the future and know what you do know, but allowing yourself to, whatever the grief is, if it's grief, allowing yourself to feel whatever it is you feel about that past, but just being mindful and not being so harsh on yourself or punish yourself for things you didn't know, and having some grace. And as a Christian, God always talks about, first of all, LCD is not sinful, for one, right? You're not doing anything sinful. And accepting your human condition of not knowing everything, and just understanding you're imperfect, and when we don't know something, when you're not held accountable, you know more now, and your experiences have taught you, or it's not a waste because you've had a lot of experience. So you take that experience, what you've learned about yourself, and you keep going and growing and you're going to continue to grow and mature.
OCD seems to want to deny humanity, right? OCD demands a perfect robot out of somebody in certain situations. So you have to be the perfect Christian, or the perfect Hindu, the perfect Muslim, the perfect Jewish person, whatever it would be. You have to do it all with no doubt, no insecurity, no mistakes, no anything. And I also am interested in what they said there. What's an appropriate way to grieve? Which almost approaches that as if there would be an appropriate way
Right.
to grieve. I don't know that there's an
There is
appropriate
no
way to
appropriate
grieve.
way to grieve.
Yeah.
Your grief is very unique to you, and you. One thing OCD likes to control things like grief and emotion. So whatever you feel is valid at any given time or moment. So understanding there is no right or wrong. It's just whatever you're feeling, and that's okay.
Yeah, if you want to cry about it, you can.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Now, again, that may go back to what we talked about in the previous question too about are there stereotypes, and especially across various cultures, that men don't cry
Mm-hmm.
at all in these situations, or something, that could be cultural, that could be gender, that could be all of these things that could come into play too. So
Right.
if we don't look at all of that, we're missing something in the work that we're doing. And to truly understand the members we work with is to understand their backgrounds, their cultures, their identities, their orientations, all of these things that come into play so that we can get just a really holistic view of who we're working with and how therapy would be most helpful to them. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. Here's another great one, I think, and I'm so happy we're getting all these questions here, and especially for on theme today. I love this. This is
Yeah,
great.
it is nice.
What's
Good.
the first of all? Oh, by the way, Marcy, I always read the questions in case someone's blind who's listening to
Right.
us,
Okay.
so that they hear the question.
Yeah.
I do that because I had a very good friend who was blind, and it always annoyed him that people would start talking and not not read the question, so he didn't know what it was.
Okay.
So happy
Nice.
Black History Month, Tori says. And what's the best way to ask for understanding, empathy, and boundaries around OCD recovery in a space that still aligns with keeping up with appearances? Oh, what a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah, it is. Well, you can ask for empathy and understanding, and you can even ask set boundaries if you feel that it's necessary. But the focus is more on giving in my opinion, yourself the empathy and understanding of your situation, because everybody's not going to understand it, and that's just a fact. But you can try. You can, and let people know how it makes you feel, whatever they're doing that makes you feel that's offensive. Educate, but one thing is we don't know what people are. We're not. You're not responsible, in other words, for what other people are doing. It would be nice to want that, but you don't need it to heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only are we not responsible for what other people are doing, we're not even responsible for what they think.
That's right.
Right.
Mhm.
And that can be so difficult. How many people have we seen, Marcy, who tell us that they want to make sure that people don't have negative thoughts about them, right?
Oh, gosh, very common.
And
Hmm.
I still haven't met someone who's come into therapy who's said to me, you tell me if you have, but I've not yet met someone who said, Dr. McGrath, I'm afraid everyone loves me and thinks I'm awesome.
No, I haven't.
No, you haven't treated anyone for that either? No?
Uh,
Okay.
mm,
But I sure get a lot of the opposite of that.
Right,
What if people don't like me? What if people think something negative about me? What if I'm perceived as weak or immoral or
right.
unscrupulous or whatever it might be, right? And
Mhm,
how much that drives behavior over the
mhm.
what if question. And that's why I've always said OCD is a what if disorder, right?
It sure is.
Because Marcy and I could tell all of you this over and over again. The reason we won't ever give you an answer is you will always have another yeah, but what if
Mm,
question to follow up that answer, right?
that's true.
Now, Marcy, this is an interesting question I want to ask.
Hmm.
Because before working here at NoCD and doing OCD work, what I often see is a lot of therapists who don't understand OCD so well and who will talk about things like providing assurances and
Mm,
diaphragmatic breathing and muscle relaxation, or saying, when you have a thought you don't like, replace it with one you do,
Mm,
which just turn
yeah.
into compulsions. I'm wondering if you could talk about for a moment just what it was like to come here, learn about OCD and ERP, and how it maybe has changed the way you do treatment today versus what you did before you joined.
Oh boy, it's a complete different. Yeah, it's very different than what we've even been taught in grad school, and I think about like the gentleman that was on earlier. I have to forgive myself about how I may have didn't treat people with OCD the correct way because of that mindset of cognitive CBT, cognitive behavioral approach, and take deep breaths. And I remember feeling frustrated because it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a breath of fresh air to see that you mean that's all you have to do is just, you know, not do these compulsions and allow yourself to feel and it'll pass. That's and to see the it's very refreshing to see their progress and how they feel better about themselves, and it's like it's really a nice change
Yeah.
um to see.
I, I always tell people who come here, especially if they've been in the field for a while, that be ready for a month of guilt where
Mhm.
after we train
Mhm.
you and you start to think about, wait a minute, that sounds from, oh, I had someone like that on my case study.
Mhm.
You go, oh, I didn't do ERP.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And
That's true. That's true.
that is part of our mission here, right?
Yeah.
And that is a cross-cultural mission for us to
Yeah.
make sure that all communities have access to evidence-based care.
Mhm.
That's so, so important to be able to do.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Someone talked about in the past dealing with some religious OCD or scrupulosity, now with relationship OCD. Well, what do we know about relationship OCD? Well, first of all, I could talk interestingly about the history of relationship OCD because I could say this. When I started in the OCD fields back in 1999, we didn't look at relationship OCD as a subtype. We just thought, well, you just don't know about your relationship, so figure it out. It's really in the last 15 or so years that we started to think about, oh yeah, wait, what does OCD do? It attacks the thing that's most important to you. Well, what if your relationships are the most important
Mm.
thing to you? And so, oh, light bulb moment, holy cow, relationship OCD, everybody,
Yeah.
look at that. So,
Yeah.
I'm proud of the field for always evolving and changing. We call it sexual orientation OCD now
Mm.
because we've evolved in our thought process of the way that OCD attacks sexual orientation. And it isn't just from one orientation to another, it's all the orientations could be affected by OCD, right? So
Mhm.
I'm always proud of our field for being able to go, yep, we missed something there.
Mhm.
And now we're going to right that wrong and we're going to start working on treating people in a better way and applying evidence-based treatments to these conditions also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I get a lot of people with relationship OCD. They want to jump to the happy ever after part of their relationship, and it's hard to stay. Allow the relationship to progress, gradually progress, and they want to see the end result and if this is the right person or not. And so it's just a matter of being present and accepting you may not know everything about tomorrow, but what's going on in the present with the present interactions and experiences. A lot
Yeah.
of people doubt what they see also, I noticed.
It is the doubting disorder. Here, Verdish even says, in regards to relationship OCD, I deal with checking and reassurance when it comes to people and not being rejected by them. I read into their body language and tones when talking to them, and I'll bet again, like I said earlier, those reading in are almost always negative, right?
Mhm.
That's the case. There's plenty of great research that shows even people with social anxiety can look at a neutral face picture compared to somebody who doesn't have social anxiety. And the person without social anxiety says, that's a neutral face. And the person with social anxiety says, that's an angry face, right? So even the way that we perceive things goes through a lens, and anxiety disorders, OCD, can create a lens that we see life through and really put quite a spin on things for people. Right.
Right. It's just accepting the uncertainty. I don't know what people are thinking or about me, one way or the other.
Gospel Hostage says, this response is going to make me cry right now. Thank you for the response. Oh, thank you. We really appreciate it. And
Yes.
we really appreciate you being here tonight too. So people are talking about scrupulosity. So let's talk about that a little, some questions about it. There's two types of scrupulosity. There's moral scrupulosity, or there's religious scrupulosity. Moral scrupulosity would be a fear of, what if I've done something offensive to somebody else, right? Or somebody were to think negative of me in some ways. Kind of different than social anxiety, because it isn't just about social situations where you'll be judged, but it's all the time, right? Just this ever-present kind of thing. And religious scrupulosity would be, have I done something somehow offensive in my faith system? Maybe I've offended a higher power. Maybe I've done something that will prevent me from an afterlife that I would want to do. Maybe I've had an impure or blasphemous type of thought that I shouldn't have. And of course, the moment we think we shouldn't have a thought, what do we get? My favorite, the pink elephant effect, right? There's my pink elephant, always at my desk, always waiting for people, right? Yes, we get the pink elephant effect. That's what happens. And when we get the pink elephant effect, well, guess what? It's hard to make it go away by not thinking about it, right? So what do we have to do? And this, I think, and actually, tell me what you think about this, because I think this is an important discussion. This is what I think can be the hardest sometimes for people who have religious scrupulosity. When they say to us, I don't want to have this particular thought ever again. And they may equate that to a blasphemous thought. And our answer is, we just have to learn to allow that to be there and move on from it and give no attention to it. Instead of, we have to work with you to make that thought stop.
Right. I know in the African American community, it's a we're very spiritual people, and the issues may be taking scripture literally or out of context, or thinking of God is, to have a healthy fear, but not a terrifying type of fear.
Right.
About
How
God.
angry of a God is God, right? Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah.
So that's having some good foundational understanding of the Bible, because a lot of times that's what it is, taking things literally and not out of context, and latching on to it.
Right. And the danger becomes, for a lot of people, is they will use the Bible and they will go to this verse and then this verse and then this verse and find a proof text. But you could also do that for things that then go against that too, right? And then you could, well, this other verse though says this, and it's like, and OCD is always going to look for those negative things, right? So in the end, it's not going to be about finding all the right, even verses from any kind of scripture. It's going to be to allow yourself to know that, hey, this condition I have, this is what OCD does. So what am I going to have to do? I'm going to accept that my mind goes there, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to live my life even with that being there. And I'm going to just give no attention to it as much as possible. And if I do give attention to it, I'm going to try to pull myself back into living my life and doing the things that I need to do, instead of trying to fight this thought, because, boy, I still haven't met one person yet who's won in a thought fight.
Right.
And
just accepting your human condition of being imperfect.
Yeah.
I think it kind of feeds into some just OCD with perfectionism, and we're all imperfect.
But Marcy, I don't want to be imperfect. I want. Can you help me be?
We all, yeah. that's not what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy, but I want it to be, right? And how much do we hear this? How much we could get into just battles of, but I want it to be, but you're not going to be, but I want it to be, but you're not going
Right,
to.
right.
So
Yeah.
when people can accept that this image, this urge, this thought doesn't have to mean a darn thing,
Mm-hmm.
they can move on.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as they're going to associate, as long as this is happening, this means this, you stay
Right,
very stuck then in this idea.
right.
And then I need to do a compulsion to neutralize that. Because if I don't, then it's my fault. I'm bad.
Mm,
I'm damned. I'm whatever it is that I might be.
right. Those are emotions and discomfort as a sign as well as something that's bad or wrong about me because I'm feeling whatever feeling, discomfort or distress that's coming.
Yeah. And this is interesting too, where they talk about your daughter suffering with this for the last 2 years. With scrupulosity and wondering if religious OCD is the hardest. I think anybody with any subtype of OCD would ask me the same question. Is this subtype the hardest? Is this
Mhm.
the hardest? And in fact, it was always interesting when I was doing this live and running groups. Every time a new person, Marcy, would join the group, they would at some point while someone else was talking, lean over to the person next to them and say, I wish I had that kind of OCD. That would be
No.
much easier to deal with than the one I
Yeah.
have because mine is the hardest kind. And
Right.
everybody in the group would go, ha ha, we
Mhm.
said that too when we joined the group, just so you
Right.
know. And no, yours is not the hardest kind
Right.
because they're all equally hard. Why?
Yeah.
Because they're all the same thing. Maybe they have a different theme that they pick on,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
at its core, OCD is the same thing. It's
Right.
doubt about this thing, it's uncertainty, and this notion that we should not be uncertain about this, and therefore we should find certainty. And because OCD's nickname is the doubting disorder,
Mm.
guess what? You can never give OCD certainty. Why?
That's
Because it will always doubt it.
that's true.
So you're on the hamster wheel of hell, right? You're running and running and running, trying to get somewhere, and you ain't moving.
That's right.
What? Because you're doing the same thing over and over again. If
Mhm.
you want to get better, you got to get off the hamster wheel, not
Right.
keep running on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is funny. Zachary says, tears are the entry for these live streams. So there we go. Cry away, everybody. Cry away.
Yeah.
We love it.
There's no simple answer, huh?
There you go. Mhm. Yeah. So let's see what else we have. Oh, yes. And then even with scrupulosity, you could go into the unforgivable sin or the unpardonable sin as well, right? And then,
Mhm.
of course, people want absolute assurance that they've not committed the unpardonable sin. Marcy, would there be anything I could do that would give you a 100% absolute ironclad no doubt that you've never once committed an unpardonable sin?
Not for OCD.
No.
It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
answer will be enough.
No answer will be enough. That's why we joke that your higher power could show up in session and say, hey, Marcy, don't worry about it. And Marcy, you're going to say, are you sure? Right? Because
Yeah.
that's what OCD does. It doubts. It just doubts. It's
Even
the
if you
nature.
say yes or no, or you think you found the answer, it's not going to be enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's interesting too. And I think why we're seeing a lot of it tonight is because you've talked about how important spirituality is in the African American community, and
Mhm.
therefore why we might see such a high level of
Mhm.
scrupulous kind of experience. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. And I wonder, you know, having not grown up in a black church, but I'm wondering, do you think the preaching might even kind of at
Yeah.
times be that like you should only have these thoughts or something? Is that part of the your laugh? So I'm going to go with yes because you're laughing. So yeah,
Right. That's what I
yeah.
meant by
Mhm.
taking the scripture literally,
Gotcha. Okay, yeah,
not in context. But so most, African Americans are Christian, uh, Christian community, and then you have these subtypes of,
right.
the Baptist, Protestant, whatever. So, but yeah, OCD can latch on to a sermon that was hands
Sure.
down hard if you're not doing right, and God's
Mhm.
gonna do this or that, and
Yeah.
just latch on to that.
Mhm.
Um, but the so I know OCD is not a logical issue, but
No. Mhm.
Jesus came for the sinner.
Hmm.
It's imperfection. It kind of it complements ERP really. The
Yeah,
foundation of Christianity is faith is uncertainty. To have faith is to have a faith of a mustard seed. I mean, it's a lot of uncertainty
sure.
with that.
I even take a look at, if you go to the original, like Aramaic of the word sin, which is
Hmm.
hamartia, it means you missed the mark. But
Hmm.
sin today means you're going to hell. You royally screwed up and you are damned for that, right? So
Hmm.
even just that one word, as it's
Yeah.
been translated over the course of time, right,
Mhm.
is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah. So a lot of people in here tonight are talking about blasphemous thoughts, feeling unworthy, and
Hmm.
the idea that um, people don't even want to go to church or
Yeah.
something like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I love seeing the support. That's what I love about the scroll, because it's so fun to see people supporting each other and
Hmm.
talking about, oh yeah, I had that too, and everything. So
Okay.
that's really, really neat.
Yeah.
Even here, people being told OCD isn't real. Stop focusing on recovery for something you don't have. You're being weak and self-centered.
Mhm.
Go along with how things are. It's sad. No, and this is beyond just African American history, but this is all culture, right?
Right.
It's sad that there's still anybody in the world who will think we ought to be in total 100% control of our brain at all times,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Nobody is. So
nobody is.
nobody is.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering if one common compulsion is seeking reassurance.
of course. Yeah.
And if you're
Mhm.
seeking reassurance from others, I don't know if that's part of it, but just understanding that some people may or may not understand your 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 um, your OCD and your what you're going through, and accepting the uncertainty of that is hard. I know it's hard, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we don't believe anybody is just screwed, right? I mean, we always believe, and I see Beth out there. She's going to yell at me about this, but that's okay. Beth and I have a frenemy relationship here on my on my. Hi, Beth. How are the crabs? I hope they're all surviving and doing well. Um, we all have a choice to do what OCD tells us or to do the opposite of what OCD tells us. We have a choice to do the compulsion or the safety behavior or to do the other thing. Now, it may feel like we don't have a choice because the idea of doing anything other than the safety behavior feels so overwhelming and so frightening that there's just no way. But I still haven't met a person yet that I would agree with them and say, you're right. You're really screwed. There is no choice for you.
Right.
I have not met that person yet in 26 years. Many have tried to convince me of it. In fact, there was one day, Marcy, this is a very fun story. I was working at the hospital and someone came up to me and said, I think I have the worst case of OCD you've ever seen in your career.
Mm.
And I said, well, okay. And then about an hour later, another person came up and said, I think I have the worst case of OCD you've ever seen. I thought, what? Wait, what is good?
Right.
And then an hour later, a third person came up to me and said, I think I might. And I was like, am I being punked? Where's the TV crew? Who is punking me right now and all this stuff?
Yeah.
So instead of sending them to their exit group that we had, I brought the three of them together into a room and I said, okay, like the Highlander, which is this show where the line is there can be only one, like they all battle each other until there's only one left, right? I
Okay.
said, like the Highlander, there can only be one worst case of OCD that I've ever seen in my career. I'd like to watch the three of you fight it out until you decide
Mm.
which one wins. Well,
Mm.
after 20 minutes of them trying to argue with each other by why theirs was worse or theirs was worse or theirs was worse, I said, okay,
Mm.
I think we've found an exercise in futility here. The three of you could spend all this time arguing with each other and believing in yourself that you have the worst case of OCD that I've ever seen, and then use that as a reason why therapy won't work very well for you. Or we could all agree that just because we think that doesn't mean it's true, and we could really put an effort into doing some treatment tomorrow.
Mhm.
Right. So but there are people who will hold on to that notion that they're too far gone, that they're
Hmm.
unhelpable, and we don't believe that, right?
Right.
Marcy and I will never say to someone, "We think you're unhelpable."
No, no, you won't hear it from me. Yeah.
Not going to happen. I like this one. The line between setting boundaries and avoidance. Any tips for not avoiding triggers, but also not putting yourself through unnecessary triggers at the same time?
Hmm. That's a good question.
Uh,
Yeah.
any ideas? I'm happy to throw, but go ahead
Yeah.
if you have something.
So, so when it comes to boundary setting, is it because a lot of times what I notice is that my members doubt their experiences with people, like what they actually notice, and they question: "Is am I wrong? Are they wrong?" And so that would be, and what I'm noticing is that they don't trust what they're observing. Like if somebody is doing something offensive or said something out of the way or stepped on your toe and didn't say sorry, that is a boundary issue because it's what that's what you observe, that's what you see. And then avoidance is not necessarily a bound or someone did something to you, but it's a feel something I'm avoiding because it's uncomfortable, because I don't want to face something that's uncomfortable. And it's more based on emotions than what's actually happening.
Yeah,
And your experiences are not supporting a boundary issue, but it's just something I don't want to do because it's uncomfortable.
yeah, yeah. And one of the other things that's important for people to think about is, and why I've moved away from this idea of we don't sit with anxiety, we live with discomfort, right? Sitting almost has this idea, I'm going to sit here until the anxiety passes, then I'm going to go live my life. And living with it means I have this feeling and I'm going to go live my life even though this feeling is there. So, in one way of looking at it, it could be like, I'm going to avoid doing anything because I have to first get rid of this feeling before I can do
Mm.
everything. But in living with anxiety, I'm going to live my life. And this thing is there, and I'm still going to go and live my life and face things and do stuff and
Mhm.
everything like that. And that's really then putting yourself out there. Now, in terms of setting a boundary, well, I like to think of this. Maybe a hierarchy is a nice way to think about setting boundaries. As you're working with your therapist, we're not here to throw you in the deep end of the pool at first and tell you to sink or swim. We're going to stick a toe in the water, see how it feels, and we're going to build up to diving off the diving board eventually. So you might want to think of maybe an appropriate boundary is, here's the hierarchy. This is how I'm following. These are the steps that I'm going to take to get there. I don't have to jump up 3 more things to do that today. I just know that these are the things I'm going to do and the latter steps that I'm going to take to get there. So that might be a really good way to think about setting a boundary for the things you're going to do, working in your comfort of that, building more comfort as you work up that,
Nice.
instead of, oh, I just have to avoid that. Well, maybe right now I'm not doing that, but I'm going to get there. And when I get there, I'll have done it in a stepwise way that wasn't overwhelming to me.
Mhm. Yeah, everything's gradual. It doesn't happen overnight. It didn't
Totally.
occur overnight. So giving yourself that period to grow and as you're trying a new way of looking at your situation and triggers and experiences.
Mm-hmm. I like this. Any advice on holding space in support groups for folks who talk about the way race and other subjectivities impact their experience while also keeping on a focus of OCD in relation and commonalities? So, I think that goes back to things you said earlier, Marcy,
Okay.
about, right?
Right.
Create community. We create community, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Create the
Mhm.
community and the support, and the real issues that our community face and addressing them and bringing them to the surface.
Mhm.
That would be good.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. Let's see. Someone asked about sexual orientation, OCD, or really for any subtype of OCD. Is OCD curable? If curable means you'll never have the thoughts about something again, no. If curable means I can live with doubt and uncertainty in a way that I never was doing before treatment, Absolutely. Right. So that's how we want to think about what does a cure mean to you? Because if you come into therapy thinking a cure would mean I'll never have this thought again, we don't know how to do that.
Mhm.
I haven't
But you
figured
live
out.
with it for sure. You live with
Yes.
it and function and have a good quality of life.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that's our goal. How do we help people really, really do a good quality of life, right?
Mhm.
And quality of life sometimes means living with things that are uncomfortable, right? I
Right?
mean,
Right?
there are people we know who have chronic pain. There are people who are living with ongoing chemo, maybe for the rest of their life to try to keep cancer at bay or something like that. There are all sorts of people out there who are suffering so many ways that we may not know.
Right.
And can we hold some grace in them, right?
Mhm.
I remember over by where my parents live. Of course, this was interesting. Over the Christmas holiday, some cousins they were having a party at my parents' house.
Mhm.
Cousins parked in front of the person who lives by my parents, and it's a person who, from what I can tell, uh, is suffering from some mental health issues. And when they parked in front of her house, she came out and she said, "I'm going to call the police on you." And they was taking pictures of their car. And
Mhm.
some people in the family were like, "I'm going to go out there and confront her." And it was like,
Mhm.
it's not going to go anywhere, right?
Mhm.
This is not going to change something. So
Right.
can we allow for some grace in this experience, and just recognize that there are times to maybe intervene and to do some correction, and there's other times to say, you know what, maybe this is one of those times just to take a little break.
Right.
So
Yeah.
knowing those things, and yeah, with OCD, we want to intervene, right? We
Right.
definitely want to intervene to try to help people and do the things that we can. But we've also heard from people tonight who talk about, oh my gosh, the perceptions other people have and things of that.
Yeah.
There are perceptions of my parents' neighbor.
Mhm.
Okay, you know what?
Yeah.
She doesn't know it,
Right.
and it's not affecting her whatsoever.
That's right. That's
So uh,
everybody has an opinion.
everyone has an opinion,
Yeah.
and they probably all stink.
Mhm.
So, you
Some
know the
do,
phrase. I'm not
some
going
do,
there, but
some don't. Some do,
maybe,
some
maybe
don't.
not.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we're done tonight, Marcy, anything that you want to say just to wrap up? We had such an amazing audience tonight, and
Yeah.
thank
It's good
you,
to see.
thank you.
Glad to
Yeah.
be here.
Mhm.
I'm just glad to be here and glad to be able to answer the questions. Hopefully they were it was helpful for you and to continue to on your journey of healing. And it's a journey and allow and having I notice people who have OCD they don't have grace for themselves.
Yeah.
They have
Mhm.
grace for
Mhm.
other people, but not for themselves. So have practice having compassion and grace for yourself as you're on this journey, all right, of trying to find a better way of living uh,
Mhm.
with a better life and keeping hope and having hope about it and taking one day at a time and staying present.
I love a message of hope. I really
Mhm.
do. Right.
Mhm.
And as you said, what's one of the best ways to make sure that all communities are open to discussions about mental health? It starts with nights like tonight, right?
Yeah.
Where we have the two of us together who look so different and yet have a common goal that we make sure that people aren't suffering anymore, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
so that that's what's beautiful. And I will say this, I am so proud of the no CD therapy community, the who we have hired, the broad spectrum of therapists that we have here at this company, and our dedication to making sure that we have therapists who represent all realms of life. So I'm really happy to have you here with us, Marcy, and I
Thank
really
you.
thank you for being here tonight. It means so much.
And I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining tonight. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check us out at nocd.com. That's nocd.com, where we work with things like OCD and body-focused repetitive behaviors and hoarding and trichotillomania and excoriation and tics. And we do work that comes along with that, like anxiety disorders or trauma and mood conditions. And it's starting to expand more into body dysmorphic disorder too. So lots of things out there. We do take insurance here in the US, and we also work in other countries. So please go to nocd.com, nocd.com, where we are willing and able to assist. Marcy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Good night.